Prince Harry. Which, the more I think about this, the more fascinating this is. It's been reported Prince Harry did tell U.S. authorities about his history of drug use when he applied for a visa. Sources close to the Duke of Sussex insisted that the royal told officials the truth about his past use of cannabis, cocaine, and magic mushrooms when he applied for residency in California. I mean, yeah, the lightness you're describing, Harry, is called being high. I mean, it brings new meaning to your highness. Exactly. I think that this is a dangerous conversation. That's his unique name. Your Highness. Exactly. That is an unique name. You've dubbed it now. Well, and can we just, while we're on nicknames, can we change Frogs it to a victim? And again, divulges his fondness for drugs. I started doing it recreationally, he says, and I started to realize how good it was for me. I'm not talking about psychedelic narcotics. I would say it's one of the more fundamental parts of my life that changed me. From royal rebel to royal wreck, Prince Harry looks nothing like the man who walked away from the crown. Now, he's stumbling through public appearances like a ghost of his former self, with drug use rumors swirling and that vacant stare raising eyebrows everywhere. His Highness, more like rock bottom, and Meghan's tearful camera moment might be the clearest sign yet that the palace escape plan is falling apart. Revealed in his memoir, Spare, that he'd used recreational drugs, raising questions of how the royal could have even been allowed to enter the United States in the first place. The admission led to what began as a sly remark. The tightness you're describing, Harry, is called being high, has quickly unraveled into something far darker. Behind the smirk-worthy line lies a truth that's beginning to alarm even the most seasoned royal watchers. Prince Harry doesn't seem well. VIP treatment, fast lane treatment for Prince Harry. Do you think, Rupert? I don't know, but I think probably when he went to America, I don't think there was probably too many restrictions, bearing in mind his wife is American. In recent months, his public appearances have taken on a strange, almost ghostly quality. The sparkle once synonymous with the prince, the quick wit, the emotional honesty, the fire, has dulled into something distant and unsettling. His eyes often look glazed, his speech flat and robotic. The photographs, frozen in time, seem to capture not a man in control, but one adrift. Sources close to the Duke of Sussex insisted that the royal told officials the truth about his past use of cannabis, cocaine, and magic musterings when he applied for residency in California. Harry revealed in his memoir, Spare, Harry has never hidden his complicated relationship with substances. He's spoken frankly about using them to manage pain, psychological wounds that never fully healed, but those past confessions now read like foreshadowing. With the Sussex brand under siege, contracts dissolving, public interest waning, and the sheen of their American reinvention wearing thin, the pressure is once again mounting. And this time, there's no palace machine to cover the cracks. It's the American citizenship, so I don't think there were too many problems in him being able to get into California, into America. The rumors of a relapse are no longer confined to tabloids. They're echoed in the unease of those closest to him. The silence in Meghan's recent solo moves, and the noticeable distance between the once inseparable pair. What used to be chalked up to jet lag or media fatigue now feels like a pattern, an unraveling that's difficult to ignore. Creational drugs, raising questions of how the royal could have even been allowed to enter the United States in the first place. The admission led to a conservative think tank using a Freedom of Information law. He speaks, but the words don't land. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. There's a heaviness in his presence now, as though he's carrying something invisible but crushing. This isn't character assassination, it's a reckoning, one that suggests that the prince who once fled the firm in search of freedom might be facing a far more personal prison, a return to the very demons he once swore he'd left behind. And if that's true, the implications aren't just tragic, they're terrifying. I think this has been a Freedom of Information request to find out whether what is. While Harry grapples with shadows that seem to grow darker by the day, Meghan clings to the illusion of sunshine. Curated, filtered, and highly branded, her latest attempt to recapture the public's affection came draped in linen, lavender, and the soft glow of lifestyle chic. But behind the golden hour aesthetic, the truth was harder to hide. The fairy tale is fraying. Doubt. Who let the Duke into the country? But under U.S. law, an admission of drug use usually results in a person being denied entry to the United States. So, what is going on? Rupert Bell, Talk TV royal correspondent, is... American Riviera Orchard was marketed as Meghan Markle's grand return, the birth of a new domestic empire from the self-styled Duchess of Montecito. It promised refinement, simplicity, and the romance of slow living. But what the public got was something else entirely, a brand launch soaked in artificiality, confusion, and cringe-worthy execution. VIP treatment, fast-lane treatment for Prince Harry. Do you think Rupert? I don't know, but I think probably when he went to America, I don't think there was probably too many. At the center of the storm were those now infamous jars of strawberry jam, wrapped in florals and fanfare, hand-delivered to a list of influencers, not for purchase, just for show. Then came the sold-out signs that appeared before the site had properly gone live. No wait list, no sales funnel, no clarity, just the suggestion that Meghan's brand was too exclusive for the everyday buyer. It wasn't luxury, it was illusion. And that's why this has all come about. And clearly we know, as you were alluding to there in the spare, that he has used drugs at various stages throughout his life, some for medicinal reasons as well. What was meant to appear bespoke and high demand quickly came off as staged and calculated. The rollout felt like it belonged more to a marketing intern's Pinterest board than to a serious business venture. The jars looked delicate, yes, but also empty of substance, just like the brand itself. And that's why this has all come about. And clearly we know, as you were alluding to there, in the spare, that he has used drugs at various stages throughout his life. Audiences once enchanted by Meghan's modern take on royalty saw through the performance. They weren't looking at a visionary entrepreneur. They were watching a former duchess grasping at relevance, spinning another lifestyle fantasy that felt eerily detached from real life. Some form of drugs now for medicinal purposes. The narrative she tried to craft, a woman of elegance grounded in domestic warmth and feminine success, clashed violently with the cold, manufactured rollout. The fake scarcity, the awkward influencer targeting, the mystery around actual product availability. It all reeked of desperation, not demand. And the public, they've grown tired of the act. No reasons as well, and even suggesting that he's still taking some form of drugs now, for medicinal purposes, to help him with some of the mental issues that he alludes. This wasn't a case of bad timing or a failed idea. It was a misfire rooted in the fundamental misreading of what people want from Meghan now. Once hailed as the fresh breath of modernity in the royal family, she now risks becoming a caricature of the very elite detachment she once rejected. American Riviera Orchard was supposed to be her clean slate. Instead, it became another emblem of a brand struggling to connect. Because it no longer knows who it's speaking to, the fairy tale may still have glitter, but the spell is wearing off. Is to help him with some of the mental issues that he alludes to. So, it is all quite interesting that this is coming out. Now, I can't see anything coming of this in terms. It was supposed to be the soft launch of something new. A delicate tease, Meghan dressed in muted pastels, wandering through blooming gardens, framed by golden light, and accompanied by a curated playlist of domestic serenity. But while everything around her screamed ease and elegance, Meghan's face told a very different story. It is all quite interesting that this is coming out. Now, I can't see anything coming of this in terms of his status as being in America. I don't see him suddenly being put back. Her smile, once confident and camera-ready, faltered beneath the surface. It was there, but it didn't settle. Her eyes darted slightly off-frame, searching for something. Reassurance, direction, control. The air of polished poise gave way to something far more raw, a woman trying to hold the image together while everything beneath it trembled. The energy was off from the start. Her tone, usually steady and composed, wavered between forced cheerfulness and a flatness that betrayed strain. The usual sparkle, the infectious charisma she once wielded so effortlessly, seemed dimmed, almost like she was playing a version of herself, one that no longer fit, but she didn't know how to shed. On a plane and told, "Well, you can't come in now," I just don't see that happening. I think this is probably no more than people being just wanting to make sure that the rules have been adhered to. Meghan has always been the architect of her own image. Every frame, every word, every gesture, meticulously crafted. But this time, the control slipped. In those brief moments, the cracks weren't subtle. They were vivid. I just don't see that happening. I think this is probably no more than people being just wanting to make sure that the rules have been adhered to. It is interesting, isn't it? Not just the visual signs, though they were there in abundance, but something deeper, a shakiness in the rhythm of her presence, as if even she sensed that the performance wasn't landing, as if somewhere behind the forced glow, a storm was gathering. I wasn't saying I once smoked a split at university. He's talking cannabis. He's talking cocaine, magic mushrooms. He's like a scene from Breaking Bad Rupert. Boy, yes, he clearly... The video was meant to be a pivot, a relaunch, a sign that she was back and in command. But instead of revitalization, it broadcast uncertainty. Instead of dominance, it revealed vulnerability. And not the kind that wins hearts, the kind that raises questions. Was this the face of a brand blooming anew, or the carefully staged smile of someone unraveling behind the curtain? For someone who once turned the world's spotlight into a weapon of reinvention, Meghan now seems caught in it, exposed, unsure, and increasingly out of step with the story she's still trying to tell. I wasn't saying I once smoked a split at university. He's talking cannabis. He's talking cocaine. Magic mushrooms. He's like a scene from Breaking Bad Rupert. Boy, yes, he clearly... There was a time when Harry lit up every room he entered, mischievous, magnetic, deeply human. He was the royal rebel with a spark the world couldn't help but love. But lately that spark has dimmed into something unrecognizable. Those close to him speak in hushed tones now, describing a man whose body is present, but whose spirit feels a world away. You know, he played hard, worked hard when he was in the armed forces, and that was clearly, and he had lots of friends around him, and he was a bit of a social beast, and would be seen coming out of the old nightclub in London looking a little bit. His once playful energy has dissolved into something far more muted, vacant stares, erratic behavior, and a heaviness that seems impossible to shake. In place of charisma, there's confusion. In place of his old charm, a quiet disconnection that feels like a red flag waving from across every red carpet. And a bit over-refreshed might be the phrase. Harry has been transparent in the past about his battles with grief, trauma, and the dangerous comforts of escapism. He spoke openly about using drugs and alcohol to deaden the pain, to muffle the roar of unresolved sorrow. But now, those past confessions have taken on a new weightless-like history. more like a warning that went unheeded. Well, yes, clearly, he's led a full and active life. Clearly, as we can see, and one of the things before he met Meghan was the fun-loving aspect of his life. And he played hard, worked hard when he was in the armed forces, and that was... As Meghan's public ventures falter and their once untouchable brand begins to unravel, Harry's retreat from visibility has become more pronounced and more troubling. Gone are the passionate speeches and heartfelt moments. What's left is a thin veneer of public life, stiff smiles, glossy press photos, and appearances that feel more like obligations than choices. He has led a full and active life, and the Spare reveals all about that. So he's not hidden anything away, and presumably because of that, he couldn't hide anything away from any immigration authorities. So I think he... And underneath it all, the rumors have begun to swell. Whispers of a relapse, quiet but persistent, are gaining momentum. Not because of tabloid speculation, but because the signs are becoming too stark to ignore. The altered expressions, the emotional flatness, the sense of someone slipping quietly out of reach. What's perhaps most alarming is the silence surrounding it. No statements, no denials, no outreach to reassure a concerned public that the prince is on steady ground. Just a tightly controlled stream of images, all designed to show harmony, but none convincing enough to silence the growing unease. For a couple who once built an empire on vulnerability and openness, their silence now feels suffocating, and that silence speaks volumes. And he was a bit of a social beast, and would be seen coming out of the old nightclub in London looking a little bit jaded, having had a bit over-refreshed, might be the phrase, but if Harry is indeed battling old demons, this isn't just a personal struggle, it's a flashing red light, one that begs to be acknowledged before it turns into something irreversible. Because beneath the royal titles, the Netflix deals, and the Hollywood polish, this is a man teetering between past and present, haunted by a history that was never fully put to rest. And right now, the world isn't just watching, it's worrying. The Meghan Markle brand once promised reinvention, modern elegance, and quiet power. But lately, it's been reduced to something far more mundane and far more baffling. No longer the Duchess of Disruption, Meghan is now the unlikely face of a lifestyle line revolving around jam. And not just any jam, a fruit spread so contentious. And the Spare reveals all about that. So he's not hidden anything away, and presumably because of that, he couldn't hide anything away from any immigration authorities. So I think he... Donna Collins, a respected voice in traditional preserves, who delivered what might be the most poetic takedown yet. Her verdict, Meghan's product, isn't even proper jam. It's what happens, she said, when jam fails. In other words, a culinary blunder dressed up as luxury. It wasn't just the flavor under scrutiny, it was the entire operation. From the faux exclusivity of the launch, where jars were sold out before anyone could even try them, to the influencer-led marketing blitz that felt more curated than sincere, the product exuded pretense. Meghan didn't appear as an innovator entering a new space. She came off as someone desperately clinging to relevance through Pinterest-worthy packaging and buzzwords. Now regaled us with their truth. So far in sycophantic interviews, we've Oprah Winfrey, with James Gordon, with Stephen Colbert. They've bashed Britain in 6 hours of indulgent white. The sprinkle jars only added fuel to the fire. Tiny, ambiguous vials that seemed more like set props than actual products. What were they? What did they do? Why did they exist? There were no answers, only more perfectly filtered photos designed to look artisanal, but landing somewhere between parody and pastiche. Thankfully, he has done the right thing, declared whatever went on before, and that... Behind the ribbons and handwritten tags lies a bigger problem, a fundamental lack of authenticity. The kind of authenticity that real lifestyle empires are built on. Not borrowed royalty, not aesthetic smoke and mirrors, but genuine voice, genuine craft, and a clear point of view. And the market, it knows the difference. What was meant to be Meghan's next chapter is rapidly becoming her most revealing one. Because in the world of luxury goods, no amount of branding can hide a product or a persona that lacks depth. We sanctioned for him to be able to live in the States as he is now. Yeah, and I wonder. In theory, Meghan Markle's brand was meant to symbolize elegance, empowerment, and curated living. In reality, it's become something else entirely, a glossy haze of mismatched aesthetics, erratic messaging, and Instagrammable moments that lead nowhere. One week, she claims she's slowing down, stepping away from launch culture to focus on quality, family, and intention. The next, a fresh batch of pastel jars appears out of nowhere, accompanied by captions so airy and vague they could have been pulled straight from a vision board. Cheers, dears, bliss in a jar, a gentle moment of joy. You know what? If you put down on your form, you're not an addict, you're not dependent on it, but some years ago, you did do something. Maybe other people would also get through, but it does seem, given that there is. The visuals are always impeccable. Sun-drenched gardens, gleaming countertops, and soft smiles. But behind the lens, there's no discernible direction, no strategy, just scattered drops of aesthetic with no deeper narrative holding it together. Self-centered versions of history. Harry has barely finished the global family trashing tour in support of his treacherous family trashing memoir, but never to me, he's decided that what's missing isn't content, it's clarity. The kind of clarity that turns a product line into a movement, a founder into a visionary. Meghan's lifestyle venture doesn't reflect her journey, her voice, or even her supposed values. Instead, it feels like a collage of borrowed ideas, part Goop, part Martha Stewart, part California cottagecore, with none of the substance that makes any of those brands work. This is a live therapy session with Dr. Gay Ball-Mart, a fated-to-trauma expert, in which he reminded us again that he, Harry, is the world's biggest victim. Even her most devoted fans are beginning to blink. The questions they once asked in defense have now become laced with doubt. Who is this for? What's the message? Where is it going? Because what's unfolding isn't a business. It's an aesthetic experiment, stitched together by soft filters and seasonal colors. But devoid of soul, the disconnect is growing. Meghan, once praised for her clarity of purpose, now seems caught in a fog of her own making. A period of his life where he was, I don't want to say prolific, but he has dabbled in quite a lot, that some might say that it would at least had a conversation. The American Riviera Orchard line was supposed to be a beacon of authenticity. Instead, it has revealed a brand that isn't rooted in anything at all. Not heritage, not meaning, not innovation, just vibes. And for someone who once rewrote the royal playbook with boldness and intent, that drift into vagueness feels not just disappointing, but dangerously off-brand. When is someone in this family going to break free and live? Have you done that? I have now. Yeah. What does it feel like? There was once an ease to Prince Harry, a warmth that drew people in. Whether he was laughing with children at charity events or offering heartfelt words to veterans, he exuded a kind of unfiltered sincerity that transcended the pomp of his title. But lately, that light has dimmed, and in its place, something hollow has settled. Yes, well, I think, look, you always get questions about, have you been run livestock, or things like that? There are all sorts of questions you get asked by United States authorities. His public appearances, once vibrant and charged with purpose, now feel subdued, sometimes even forced. He shows up, but the presence feels fragmented. His voice, so often used to speak passionately about mental health and trauma, now carries a muted tone, as though he's reciting rather than feeling. And his eyes, which once danced with mischief and humanity, seem heavy, fogged, far away. For those who have followed Harry's journey, his battles, his healing, his bold exit from the firm, this shift is more than just a rough patch. It's a red flag. What's unfolding isn't just a story of a prince under pressure. It's the unraveling of someone who once stood tall against his pain, only now to seem overwhelmed by it once again. His posture has changed. His energy has changed. The man who once forged a new path is now giving off the unmistakable aura of someone lost within it. To the country, I think you have to also take, how long ago was it? Has he reformed and changed? Well, you would assume that he has. Mental health advocates have noticed. Royal observers have noticed. Even former allies have begun expressing quiet worry behind the official statements and polished portraits. I felt incredibly free. I felt a huge weight off my shoulders. Oh, shut up. There is something quietly unsettling about it. Not just the contrast, but the lack of alignment. As Harry fades from view, the machine around Meghan speeds up. This isn't about blame, it's about concern. For a man who once risked everything to protect his own peace, it now seems like no one is protecting his, not even the person closest to him. Probably, they might regret when they were young, and I think we might put that into that category, because clearly now he has. Harry may have walked away from royal duty, but he never meant to disappear. Yet today, that's exactly what seems to be happening. Not in exile, but in plain sight. Within the corridors of Buckingham Palace, amid the tradition, protocol, and relentless pressure of monarchy, King Charles is said to be quietly battling a very human ache, the unraveling of his younger son. The past was, there's been an advert, not taking drugs. It's old Harry, isn't it? U.S. border agents take a dim view of drug use by non-U.S. citizens. Non-Jeddah Lawson was once banned from flying to America. It's not the headlines that trouble him, not the Netflix tell-alls, the podcast jabs, or the relentless media firestorms. Those he's learned to endure. What's said to truly weigh on him is something much simpler and far more painful, a father's helplessness. Despite the distance, the damage, and the deeply personal wounds inflicted on the crown, Charles has never fully let go of Harry. However, sources close to the palace say the king is emotionally spent. Years of private conversations, public shielding, and financial lifelines have chipped away at his patience. The love is still there, but the tolerance is wearing thin. On Netflix, they've fronted bog-ass on their self-centered versions of history. Harry has barely finished the global family trust. One palace insider put it plainly. He's told Harry, "You created this mess, you fix it." It wasn't cold, it was honest. Because behind the velvet curtains and royal ceremony is a father who's exhausted, caught between the demands of the throne and the chaos his son keeps dragging into the spotlight. I'd be very surprised if he did not falsify in some way his visa application form, because it rarely does ask. There's even quiet speculation that Charles, despite everything, is still offering discreet financial support to the Sussexes, not out of obligation, but out of a lingering hope that things might yet stabilize, that beneath the branding, beneath the headlines, his son is still reachable. Thanks, which he hasn't been charged with, but if I remember correctly, from my own visa applications over the years, that they do actually ask if you have, but even that generosity may be reaching its limits. The palace coffers are finite. The monarchy's goodwill, even more so. And with Harry and Meghan's public image cracking under the weight of failed ventures and relentless scrutiny, Charles is faced with an impossible tension: protect the institution or protect his son for a king. Illegal drugs, and of course, he has taken them constantly over the decade. And he's proud of it, Phil. He's boasting about it, Phil, so surely this is... Duty must always come first. But for a father, watching from afar as his child spirals deeper into isolation, the crown offers little comfort. It's a cruel paradox. Charles once stood as the very symbol Harry rebelled against. Now, he may be the last quiet support Harry has left, and even that thread is fraying. In the court of public opinion, it's easy to cast Charles as detached, but behind closed doors, the portrait is far more complex. A father torn between legacy and love, watching powerlessly as his son drifts further from both. Fault? He doesn't seem to have any respect for the laws of his new country, Phil. No, he's been hoisted by his own petard, hasn't he, Dad? Amid the frosty silence between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family, one name continues to linger in the background, Princess Eugenie. For years, she was seen as the quiet constant, the one royal who maintained a private warmth toward Harry and Meghan, even as tensions escalated. But recently, a subtle public moment has reignited speculation about where her loyalties truly lie. I opened about it in the book. The same as confessing to killing 25 Taliban, and going on about that, he's now been exposed for the drug-taking, and it's all his own fault. Eugenie's appearance alongside Misha Nonu, one of Meghan's closest and most influential friends, didn't go unnoticed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't staged, but it was enough to send royal watchers into a quiet frenzy. In a family defined by optics, even the most casual photo can carry layers of meaning. Is Eugenie a peacekeeper, a silent envoy between estranged parties, or is she simply trying to navigate the minefield with grace, refusing to engage in the unspoken war of allegiances? It's a talk about it, but it's said about example to young people, and now it's all coming home to ruin. A couple of hours ago, I might have said to you, unlike other royals who have firmly closed ranks, Eugenie has always taken a different approach. She and Harry have shared a long-standing bond that predates the drama. A sibling-like closeness rooted in youth, mischief, and a shared understanding of life lived under relentless scrutiny. Even after Harry and Meghan's royal exit, Eugenie visited them in California, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word spoken. You know, nothing would happen to him, bearing in mind we've got a democracy at the White House, and the Democrats are running this show in California, when we all know which side Harry and Meghan are on. But now that this group, the Heritage Foundation, are sort of getting stuck into this, and the Department of Homeland Security are being a bit coy about the answers. But now, her continued proximity to Meghan's inner circle raises new questions. Is she still a confidant, or merely a familiar face caught in a complicated web? In a family where silence often masks strategy, Eugenie's quiet presence is loud with possibility. You don't think he's got something to worry about? Well, ladies see, he does, doesn't he? Because at the end of the day, the immigration, the Homeland Security departments in the U.S. are very strict on this type of thing. Some believe she represents the last living thread between Harry and the institution he abandoned. Others argue she's walking a tightrope, trying to preserve old loyalties without making new enemies. Whatever her intentions, one thing is clear. Eugenie's role in this royal rift is far from over, and in a story defined by sides, silence, and symbolism, even her smallest move still matters. If you were a non-U.S. citizen, look at Nigella Lawson. You know, she was banned from entering the country, actually taken off a plane. As a result of a newspaper story, she hadn't. There was a time when Meghan and Harry could do no wrong. The press, especially in progressive circles, rallied around them as modern royalty and brave truth-tellers shaking the monarchy to its core. Well, absolutely. But you know, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really matter which political party's in power. The reality is that Harry's, once heralded as symbols of liberation, they are now treated with a tone closer to pity than praise, and it's not just the tabloids. Even their most vocal supporters in the mainstream press have grown weary. The problem? The story doesn't land anymore. The image of Harry and Meghan as oppressed outsiders no longer fits when they're broadcasting curated vulnerability from the grounds of a Montecito mansion. When you're pushing $60 jars of jam and whispering about wellness, the narrative of struggle begins to ring hollow. We have a family, and both the Democrats and Republicans are not going to want to antagonize the crowd. I mean, it's not that the public stopped caring, it's that they stopped believing. The magic trick that once worked, pairing confessional grief with aesthetic glamour, has lost its power. And as the couple continues to project an air of soft focus branding and tightly managed moments, the media is beginning to peel back the filter. They're no longer amplifying Meghan's messages, they're interrogating them. Not with malice, but with fatigue. Even sympathy has its limits. What began as support has shifted into scrutiny. The headlines are softer, yes, but also sharper, less celebratory, more cautious, less look at their courage, and more look at the cracks. That, I would be very surprised if anything happens. But I think what should happen is when, and perhaps even more cutting than criticism, is this new tone of detachment. Because when the press stops treating you like a subject of admiration and starts treating you like a cautionary tale, the damage is far harder to undo. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. In the final seconds of Meghan's latest soft-filtered video, as she spoke with delicate poise about her new brand and future projects, something shifted. Her voice caught, barely. Her lower lip pressed together just a moment too long. Her gaze dropped, and she blinked in that unmistakable way people do when they're swallowing emotion they'd rather not release. Yeah, it's like a reverse thing, isn't it? Prince Andrew doesn't want to go to America in case he's arrested, and Harry doesn't want to come over here. Now we want it to come to the coronation so he can't get back. I mean, we keep changing our minds. Like, I think he's bigger. At that moment, the curated calm of American Riviera orchards slipped. The pastel palette, the handwritten tags, the strawberry-sweet messaging, all of it felt suddenly irrelevant. Because beneath the silk and sunshine was a woman under pressure. Trying not to fall apart in front of the world, it changed everything. The video, once dismissed as another round of brand theater, took on a darker tone. Viewers stopped seeing a woman launching jam and started seeing a woman barely holding it together. The branding didn't feel aspirational anymore. It felt defensive, fragile, like she wasn't just selling a lifestyle, she was shielding herself with it. RTL, some other social scene, and you get the impression he might well be still taking them. That's when he could get into trouble. If he goes, if someone sets him up, takes a photo of him doing something silly, the illusion had been perfect until that moment. And then it was painfully human. No statement followed, no explanation, just the briefest, rawest glimpse of something real. And in that blink-too-long silence, the mask slipped, and the world saw the cost of keeping it on. But I don't think he's going to be arrested. I don't think anything's going to happen to him, but I think there is danger in the future if he keeps taking drugs. Well, as you see, the other day he was boasting about drugs again. At this point, even their most ardent defenders would admit, the old playbook isn't working anymore. The softly lit videos, the overpriced lifestyle launches, the carefully framed vulnerability, it's all beginning to collapse under the weight of something unavoidable. Reality, what Meghan and Harry need now, isn't another headline, not another podcast, not another glossy photo shoot. or tightly managed interview with strategic pauses and viral quotes. What they need is far simpler and far harder. Humility. They don't need to be perfect. The world has never asked for that. What the world is asking for now is something far more human. Truth, unvarnished, uncalculated, and free of spin. Because for all the documentaries and declarations, for all the book deals and brand launches, what's been missing is something crucial, a sense of groundedness, the sense that behind the titles, behind the drama, behind the royal rupture and media whirlwind, there are two people still capable of stepping away from the spectacle and confronting themselves. Oh, absolutely, but Harry is a gross elitist of how you're stored. The public isn't rejecting them because they left the monarchy. That chapter is long over. What's shifting now is deeper. It's about credibility, authenticity, the growing sense that behind all the curated transparency, something essential has gone missing. Meghan and Harry built a new identity on the ashes of the old one. They claimed to want freedom, peace, privacy. But what followed was more noise, more branding, more controlled narratives. And now the stories they've written for themselves are starting to blur, and no amount of lighting or scripting can sharpen them again. He's here. He seems to be proud of them. He doesn't seem to actually have any understanding that drugs cause misery for the people who he... The reckoning isn't coming. It's here because, no matter how many titles they shed or products they launch, the one thing they haven't offered, and the one thing that might still save them, is a moment of real reckoning. A reset, not for the cameras, but for themselves, not as royals, not as celebrities, just as two people finally ready to let go of the illusion and step into the truth. The cracks aren't just showing, they're splitting wide open. If Harry doesn't find his footing soon, this won't just be a PR disaster. It'll be a royal collapse in real time.